interesting topic to talk about today, which is interventions. Um, yeah, it's I think a topic a lot of people are going to be fascinated to hear more about. Also to hear how the coaching formula works with interventions specifically.
Yes.
So I'll just give a quick introduction about interventions. So of course, interventions, generally speaking, is a very, very broad topic. We have interventions in the pharmaceutical realm, interventions in spiritual side of things, physical interventions. But today we're going to talk a bit more specifically about the formula and how interventions fit into this particular coaching approach. Siri, could you give us an introduction, how you see interventions and how they fit into the way you work with your clients?
Yes. It is like you said, intervention is a very broad topic. It even goes as far as in a therapeutical sense when you confront a person with a habit or something that the person is doing that the person is not aware of. You could say that's already an intervention.
Mhm.
But there's something about intervention, and the word intervention is where um, you intervene, you go in.
Mhm.
Right, because you want to touch on a certain topic or in a certain issue in a little bit deeper, in a deeper sense.
Mhm.
And so, every client, every person has a story and a history, and comes to us with some explanation of what's going on in their lives and certain challenges or issues that they're experiencing, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, but often they just talk about their life and how in certain areas of their life they feel they're not functioning optimal. Maybe they're stuck, sometimes lost, depressed,
Mhm.
struggling,
Mhm.
or simply not reaching goals. Because we don't only get clients who have issues, we have clients that have a strong motivation and ambition to really tick every box in their lives and to be successful in a most broad sense of the word, where they want to really tick every box. So they want to be conscious, and they want to be healthy, they want to be successful at home, successful at work, and they
Mhm.
want to have, maybe even realize other dreams like a second home in in Spain,
Mhm.
or leaving some sort of a legacy. And so these highly driven people, they also can sometimes experience a stuckness, or obstacles, you could say,
Mhm.
that don't really allow them to reach for these goals or dreams.
Mhm.
And so everybody has a different story. And of course, it's important that we listen to these stories, but then we also understand that behind every story is a deeper truth.
Mhm.
So you could say the story refers to the external situation that says something about what's going on in this person's life, and where that person is in trouble. But in our approach, we understand that this is an external mirror of something that is going on internally. And often when we dig into the inner world of the person, we see that most of what they speak about is almost like symptomatic for something that is going on within. So as we kind of peel off these layers and we start to understand, by looking at the person's history and their story and how they are kind of wired within, that we need to have a deeper look at what's going on in the inside. And once we start to identify let's say, the real issue, then of course we need to look at what type of intervention or what type of method or approach we need to have available to take out this hidden cause, you could say. But what's important is that we are, in our vision, we really want to go to the sorry, I just misspoke, because actually I had a very nice quote. I just remember when I started to develop this coaching formula, And I used to call it, and this was just because the clients were asking, what is it called? And I didn't even have a name for it at the beginning, as I was just kind of engineering the formula. And then I said to a client, it's called baseline coaching, with slogan, let's get to the bottom of it. So from the early stage, there was an understanding that we need to really get to the bottom of it, because otherwise we kind of bypass and we don't really get to the real cause of the problem, of the block, of the whatever is going on that the person is experiencing. So automatically I knew from the start, I needed to research and think about, what is going to be our approach to address these deeper issues, and what expertise do we need to have as coaches, or do we need to collaborate with other specialists who have studied this for 30 years and do this much better than if we would try to resolve the real issue.
Well, a typical thing with interventions is that in the therapeutical world and in the spiritual world, there are a lot of people shopping around, looking around, going to have different experiences with different types of therapy, maybe going to do meditation, yoga, plant medicine, maybe other types of therapeutical modalities that are out there.
Yeah.
Within the context of the coaching, can you maybe zoom in a little bit on how the coaching's approach that you have works together with the intervention? Because I think the synergy between the coaching formula and the intervention together is an interesting topic to discuss.
Yeah, certainly. Interventions are very broad, and there are not only a lot of different types of interventions, as you mentioned, there's also a lot of people out there searching for solution to whatever they are experiencing. So it's actually it's really large, it's really big, this whole movement of people searching for answers, searching for solutions. And what we really like to focus on is to help people navigate that better, because there's so many options. How do you know what to choose if you're not even really clear about what the issue is, or what the cause of the issue is? So then people tend to either trust whatever the doctor says, and often then end up in taking some kind of a medicine, pharmaceutical medicine, which of course, when there are clear, when there's a clear diagnostics that there's medical issues, sometimes that is a good option. A lot of people, they are now trying to find alternative solutions, because we by now know that these pharmaceuticals have a lot of negative side effects. So we try to prevent that. Then we end up in the middle, in the middle ground, which is the spiritual world, which feels very safe and very gentle. But often what we have found, and personally, I have 30 years of experience in working in the spiritual world, and I see that it's not easy with spiritual practices to really get to the cause. We can definitely make things a bit lighter, and definitely improve our health and even our awareness of ourselves. But once we become more aware, we should also become more aware of the fact that we have deeper issues. And this is not always being addressed. And this is called spiritual bypassing. So I'm not saying that spirituality is bad, but it doesn't always address the deeper issue. And spiritual practices are also not necessarily equipped to do the deeper work. Although, when you do some sort of very intense breathing technique and work with someone who can do that therapeutically, you could reach for the deeper issues, and you could work a little bit deeper. But then get into a very interesting modality, which is the world of plant medicine, which we know is also huge at the moment. And like you said, people shopping around and participating in all sorts of experiences. And what we have found is that you need to build a context first. You need to have a slower, a kind of a long-term process with the client, because it takes a while before you can help the client really get to the point, really get to the bottom of it. And once the client understands that whatever they are dealing with in their lives, that it reflects and it connects to a deeper issue, and they have become aware of that, and they can almost put their finger on the wound, that's the moment when we have absolute clarity of what the deep issue is. And based on that, carefully select not only the right medicine, plant medicine, but also a specialist that works therapeutically with the plant medicine, which not all plant medicines are, some plant medicine you take and therapeutically there's not much you can do. So the medicine does whatever it does. However, when we carefully select the approach and the therapist and carefully connect the intention to the place of where the wound is, which is already that the client already has his finger on, we have found that the approach is much more directed. It has a much stronger context, a clearer intention, and a much better effect.
Yeah, well, a big topic, of course, in the plant medicine world is people show up for a ceremony, and then they'll have a profound experience often. Not everybody, of course, but some people will, who are sensitive to the medicine or who are ready to have that insight. But aftercare has always been discussed as kind of a bit of a tricky topic, because when you have a large group of people, then the people that organize a healing session like that don't always have the capacity to track where everybody went and how they're doing, and what the integration of the experience is like for them, and how they could possibly support them in that. And often that's actually outside of the intention and the reach of the people, the facilitators or the guides. So could you say that the build up to it with the context, then having the experience, which is very, very focused, but then also after that, still being in the coaching program, still being assisted, still working on the realizations and the insights that came from the experience, and keeping that part of the coaching track and the loop that you're in with the coach, and possibly still focusing on that after the intervention to maximize the benefit, and also to ensure that the person has the full opportunity to integrate it in a positive way without skipping any steps there after they've had the experience.
Yeah, everything is interconnected, and so it has to be integrated. In the beginning of our interview, we talked about that everybody has a story. And so when people really, whether people take pharmaceuticals or whatever issue they're trying to solve, in whatever way, they are trying to solve the issue so they can feel free and healthy, living their lives, going after their dreams, and living the lives that makes them happy. So we never forget that initially the true motivation is to live a happy life. So of course we can have issues and we can focus a lot on resolving them, but whether we're successful or not, we have a life to live. So that's why the context is so important, that we understand the dream of the client. We understand what the client wants to accomplish in his or her life. We understand that what holds them back is partially embedded in their personality structure. which behind it has some deeper issue which needs to be resolved. So once we then get to the point, we get to the bottom of it, we find the right approach and resolve the issue, or partially, because sometimes it's a longer process, not everything happens in one go. But whatever result we create in regard to the deeper issue on the surface will potentially make a really big difference in the person's life. And so the inner work goes very much hand in hand and is not separate from the life that that person wants to live, and now can gradually navigate themselves towards in a healthy way, because this issue is not standing in the way of that anymore. So in our approach, you cannot really separate the two. And what we find in this world full of possibilities, that people, they come and go, and there's very little time for really understanding where the person is coming from. There's very little time to really understand what the deeper issue is, or to investigate that, and how that is affecting that person's life, and what is the kind of life that this person would like to live, if it would be possible because of resolving some deeper issues. And how to then help the person integrate a very deep experience that has changed something very fundamentally that the client is completely not used to. So you might even have resolved an issue, but the personality is still programmed to run the old program. And so has to be then kind of be trained, or has to gradually lean into this new inner reality, you could say, and integrate that into your daily life. So there's more to it, and there's more to it. That's drinking an elixir and everything is okay.
I think there are two topics. One is, I'll just touch on them first, then we can go into them separately. But one of them is that, people might be shopping around. They might have gravitate towards like a plant medicine experience, for example. They're kind of drawn to it like a moth is drawn to a flame, but at the same time, there might be ambivalence, because the hard part, the deepest part that needs attention is actually what they're most avoiding and least interested in actually interacting with. So it's kind of a strange dynamic in a way. So some people might hear plant medicine or interventions and be like, have a immediate reaction like, no, this is too much, So I think that's kind of an interesting thing to touch on for a second. Just that feeling of apprehension. I think that's the great word for it, perfect word for it. The second one is more of a question about interventions, and what kind of interventions. We're talking about plant medicine, but maybe we can go a little bit more specifically into that, because a lot of people have probably already researched this topic maybe a little bit, and might be curious to hear just a little bit more about what that could entail. Something I can kind of introduce maybe a little bit, just to touch on the topics. But I think those two things might be of interest for the people listening and watching this.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned, the kind of entering the one, or touching on the one place for some reason, because we got hurt somewhere in the past, or because of some traumatic event, we have decided to avoid and build a whole personality around that, with a lot of layers of protection, and a personality that is highly sophisticated in avoiding it. And anything that comes close to to distract that, or it's beautiful and fascinating to see how clever people are in avoiding the real issue. Plant medicine, however, has a capacity to find its way through these layers of protection and to really put the ego aside for a moment and touch on the real issue and do whatever is needed there. Mm-hmm. But like we said earlier, when a client already has the finger on the sore spot, mm-hmm. and has already have the clarity and the mental preparation and understanding, this will for sure be a smoother ride. Mm-hmm. Sometimes all the medicine does is amplify what you are doing. And so if you're avoiding the difficulty, the plant medicine will just amplify that times 1,000, hoping that you will get some insight out of it. Mm-hmm. Which then also means that, okay, great to have that insight. I could have just told you that. Mm-hmm. You could have already had the understanding of what it means to live in a personality that is very avoidant, mm-hmm. That is programmed to abandon this part of you. So yeah, it's. I think this is really where we get to kind of get some idea of how something can be effective and how not. And with people shopping around, and not meaning any disrespect, because I think it's great that people have the liberty to try out different things, but they do so in a very unsupervised, uncontrolled, and sometimes very unclear way. All they know is that they have some kind of an issue and they heard from a friend that might help. Mm-hmm. So again, mm-hmm. do we have a very clear approach that can help a person navigate it and understand what to choose for what? And then, of course, your second question: what are the types of medicine that we have, and how do you make that choice?
Yeah. So just one little kind of in between topic that complements what you were saying just now. If you just zoom out completely and you look at the coaching program as a whole, you're dealing with very tangible things. You know, how's your career? How's your relationship? How's your work going? How are your relationship with friends? What are you doing to have fun? There's how's your physical fitness? So that's kind of like zooming out completely. And then when we zoom into interventions, we're going very, very deep and very, very specific. And I think that zooming in and out effect is what makes the approach unique, because say if somebody comes to participate in a medicine ceremony, they might not be seeing it zoomed out. They're just in the moment, very much connected to the medicine, having that experience.
Yeah.
As you said before, the context is essential. So if you can bring in the rest of the elements of your life into that experience and focus them in as well, and find that balance and how it synergizes with the healing process with the plant medicine, I think that's a very interesting approach. And
yeah, I think the idea is that we need to understand that the more you are able to connect to yourself internally, which often these issues and these traumas mm-hmm. and this avoidance that we talked about kind of blocks that mm-hmm. to some extent. But the more we are able to release that tension mm-hmm. and open that gateway for this inner relationship and this inner communication, which then gives us clarity on what are the things in our lives that we would like to improve or change. And then nothing stands in the way anymore. So we really emphasize the relationship between this mm-hmm. ticking these boxes, that because our approach says you need to tick all the boxes, mm-hmm. because the more boxes you tick, the more success you have in each area of your life, mm-hmm. the better you feel and the happier you are and the more fulfillment you will experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But if that can be sabotaged by mm-hmm. deep inner issues or some hidden issue mm-hmm. that you don't even really know how to
identify
it or identify it or understand it, Now it becomes very difficult, and you can be a great therapist or a great coach, but if you don't understand the relationship between the deeper issues, how that can fully affect the external life quality and how it affects the personality in a negative way, then I think you're missing the point.
Okay, so let's go to the plant medicine type. So, broadly speaking, there's a whole array of different medicines, of course. Nature's been very generous in its abundance of different pathways to interact with, with medicine, which is very much in most cases something organic that's grown from the earth to treat us and to give us an opportunity to discover what's inside and what needs attention.
Yeah, it almost feels like the whole interview is slowly moving to the topic that everybody wants to know more about.
Yeah, I think though if we said the path towards this topic is I think being quite there's a context here, so I think that's already important. The similar context or in the same way that it's essential to have a context, I think when you step into the experience itself. But we have we have psychoactive substances which don't have to per se, per definition, be plant medicine. There's a lot of research going on in this field. There's a lot of study, finally, now that the restrictions are being lifted, and a lot of positive results in that field. And then plant medicine side, which has a very, very long tradition, of course. We have things like psilocybin, which are magic mushrooms. We have Wachuma or San Pedro, which is a cactus. We have Kambo, which is a frog medicine. We have quite a rich array of different types of medicines from different origins. We have ayahuasca, of course, which everybody knows about, most people. But what else do we have? We have different types of cacti. We have rapé, which is a tobacco. A lot of these plant medicines are used in different ways, different settings, throughout different traditions. There's a lot of variety there and richness. So when you talk about interventions and
synthetic, we have synthetic like LSD, MDMA.
of course, is a big one.
Yeah.
So Iboga is a big one. Ketamine is there as well. Ketamine is also pretty big.
Yeah.
So there's a rather large medicine chest full of goodies to choose from.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this topic.
Yeah, I've been on a long journey with hand in hand with therapies, experimenting therapists and therapies that work with plant medicine. So I would say, baptized into the world of plant medicine, but also always in this therapeutical way. And so for me personally and professionally also, I think this is a better way, especially when you want to work in this integrated format that we do. Because once we really understand what the issue is, we can more or less identify what medicine works best for this specific issue, and what therapeutic approach. So there's identifying the real issue, seeing where the client is in the process and in the readiness to start experiencing and applying something like that, which is also a big topic, because if someone has never really experienced anything before, we prefer not to give a full dosage of anything. So then we will maybe take 2 steps back and build up slowly. We really want to make sure that the clients have positive experiences and work gradually towards something that might have, I would say, a bit, make a little bit deeper impact. That for a beginning user could be quite scary, and it can put them off. It can also, if it's really a bad experience, the person can say, "Look, I never want to do this anymore," and kind of close the doors to their healing process because of it. And I think this is really sad.
Mhm.
So the way that you choose and the way that you feel into where the client is, the issue, and then matching that up with the right medicine and the therapist that we also very carefully select.
Mhm.
We only work with people who have up to 25 years of experience. They have worked with plant medicine themselves
Mhm.
and with clients for many, many, many years. There's some kind of a medical intake that we always do. A doctor that we work with that will, give you
Okay.
a kind of a checkup to make
Yeah.
sure that this is safe for you.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think all of these things give us, a sense of responsibility towards using plant medicine. And of course, the big question is maybe what everybody wants to hear is like, how do I do this? How do I navigate this? What do I choose for what? Now, I don't really want to get into the details because it's very personal. It's not
Yeah.
always so general, but certain substances, such as ayahuasca, for example, if a client says, "Hey, I want to experience ayahuasca," and we feel that it could not harm the process,
Mhm.
that the person sidetracks too much, we always say, well, we don't really make that kind of recommendation, but go ahead. I'm not stopping you. It could bring something interesting, and let me know afterwards
Mhm.
how the experience was, what you've taken from it, so that we can integrate at least that experience into our coaching formula. But ayahuasca is not an intervention that we apply because it is very difficult to therapeutically navigate it. Ayahuasca does what it does. Of course, if you have a great facility and a great facilitator and a great environment and the music is right, that could decide on the kind of experience that you have, which we as personal evolution coaches, we don't have really a say in that. If I would ever collaborate with someone who works with ayahuasca, which I'm open to explore, the first discussion I would have is, can we dose it? Can we work with very small dosages and gradually build it up and somehow test how that person interacts with the medicine without putting one glass, second glass at the first, a second, or a third sitting?
Mhm.
So that kind of soft and gradual approach is very important to us. However, there are other medicine that are highly effective in a therapeutical approach. So some of these medicine we definitely do like to work with
Mhm.
because first of all, we can work with the right dosage based on how we feel the person is, their constitution, their weight, even their length, their physicality. But knowing the person, we know more or less about their sensitivity, we know about the issue. And so based on all of this information, we can more or less decide what dosage and then do a therapeutical approach. Use a plant medicine that you can still navigate.
Mhm. Mhm.
And with something like San Pedro, for example, to name one, we have found that the person is both, it goes kind of in and out.
Mhm.
And the moments where the person is in, normally you let the person completely be in that whatever is going on. But then there's a wave where the person comes out and you can have some interaction with the client. You can say, hey, is everything okay? Maybe, connect a little bit more to your heart and talk a little bit about the topic. And then the person goes back in to work on whatever comes next.
Mhm.
So we do differentiate between whether we can therapeutically work with it. We focus on whether we can dose it right
Mhm.
to create maximum safety and to do it in a very responsible way.
Mhm. Okay, so it looks like we've touched on the topic of interventions, which is a very interesting one, of course. People are fascinated by this topic, and it's something inspires people, but also keeps people searching and exploring and investigating. So Very interesting to talk about this. It looks like we're heading towards the end of the session, so I want to thank you for your time, Siri. It was very interesting to discuss interventions with you.
Thank you,
Some
Sid.
people like talking